Very good. Now, Phoebe, now remember, I'm going to inspire a lot of you all. If you have not yet jumped all in, you're thinking about becoming an angel investor, we should pay attention to Phoebe's story. She is really my poster for what I hope most of you will be in a couple of years. So, Phoebe, go ahead.
I am such a relatively new investor compared to the panelists that I would describe my investment style as being primarily opportunistic. And I'm becoming able to articulate those things in which I will not invest. And that is, I'm better able to articulate that at the moment than I am able to articulate what I will invest in. And I think of angel investing as just part of a portfolio. So if you look at your portfolio and you say, it's of X value, and you say, this is a certain piece that I'm willing to put in alternate investments, angel investing is a terrific place to put your alternate investments. If you are full-time working, like I was at Brown-Forman, you need to invest in funds because they are going to do the work and they're going to put you in this alternative investment category. They will do the work and you will be able to get the returns that come from it. When you want to do it yourself and be active yourself, which is the step that I took, that's a step of maybe let's call it a little leap of faith, and you do leap of faith, though, based on analysis and information and research. At least that's how I did it. And so I read books, I talked to people, I listened to things, and I understood going into it that there was going to be a very high failure rate, especially for people like myself who didn't have the experience that these guys did. I go into it expecting 70% of my investments to fail. It's not because I don't think every single one of them is great when I make the investment, but things happen that you just, so I have that mental model in my head, and so that sort of changes how I maybe think about some of them. So at the beginning, if you think that's your failure rate, you better start out pretty small. So I started out very small in my investments and did a fair number of them because you need a portfolio. So I did a lot of things with small dollars just to get the exposure in a broad range, to have some kind of portfolio diversification. And that has proven to be expensive because many of them have failed. But the second thing is I have learned a tremendous amount. And so if you can invest $25,000 and come away with a tremendous learning experience, you say, okay, now I know this, now I know this, now I know this, now I know that. And I think sometimes there is nothing other than just sheer experience and going through some really difficult situations that gives you this confidence to make the next investment. And with that, this experience I just had, I've gained even more confidence about it. I think it's a terrific category for investing for those who are so inclined. And the big surprise is how much I have enjoyed working with the entrepreneurs.
Very good, very good. Last but not least, Dale, both of you are Dale.
Yes, Phoebe's comments were a good segue and a good advertisement for those of you that aren't going to make 10 investments at $250,000 to $500,000 total, should consider investing through a fund. And the model is, while we think we do a little bit better than 70% on our failure rate, the model is you're going to make 10 investments and probably 3 or 4 of them are not going to give you a return at all. 3 or 4 of them are going to give you some type of return, but not enough to justify the risk that you're taking for this asset class. Excuse me. And then 1 or 2 of them are typically going to be fund makers, where you will get a return that is extraordinary to the point of paying for all the mistakes you made in the balance of the fund. And that's not dissimilar from what we learned in Yearling Fund 1. We're doing Yearling Fund 2 now, and we are an opportunistic fund. Much like Mike described, we'll look at just about everything. We don't do horses, we don't do restaurants or real estate. But we've got investments from old line manufacturing all the way to some of the most cutting-edge biotech that's out there. And the thesis for myself and my 2 partners, Ty Wilburn and Bill LaMica, is, one, understanding that our capital, and we put in maybe a low side of $100,000 to $250,000, $300,000 on an initial investment, with a understanding that we're likely going to have follow-on investments if the company moves forward and succeeds. But the thesis is relatively simple. In understanding the business, we're active investors, we're not passive. So we sit on the board of every company that we invest in, and we actively participate with the management. So can we understand the business, and can we add value given our experiences, our Rolodex? And a lot of what we spend our days doing is working with management teams and trying to help them find additional staff and support to achieve their objectives and their goals. But one of the things that served us well is simply being opportunistic. We play on this yearling metaphor a lot, and we talk to our limited partners about how we put them in categories. We've got those early horses that are on the track, they're in training, they're doing well. We've got some that have won some races that may actually be EBITDA positive. We've got one or two that have actually made it to the stud barn. We sold them, we made a lot of money, and then we've got some dog food out there. And along the way, one of the things that we've learned, and it's time and time again, is you never bet on the horse, you always bet on the jockey. You never bet on the business, you bet on the management team, and your belief that the management team can get you there. I was talking with Pete Heron a few minutes ago, and it was, one of the lessons that we've learned is you can take a really lousy business and get a real good management team in place, and you'll make a lot of money. And the converse of that is you can take a really good business with a really lousy management team, and you lose your fanny.
All right, and with that, let's go to question number 2, which is quite simply, what are some of the mistakes you see entrepreneurs make when they come to you guys to raise money? And everybody doesn't have to answer any of these questions. Just throw the mic around. Anybody wants to jump in?
I'll start off if I can, Mark. Several things that I see and really would recommend to entrepreneurs. Number one, valuation is typically a challenge for entrepreneurs who are coming into the marketplace. They value their business at an unrealistic level. And my recommendation there is to think about multiple rounds of financing where you're ratcheting up the valuation as the business evolves and improves over time. And I think the other thing that I see in entrepreneurs is the lack of understanding of how important board governance is to investors, whether they be individuals or funds, and really embracing the notion that there needs to be independent governance on the board in order to provide the kind of guidance that a young company needs. So those would be the top 2.